Welcome back to Newsmax Prime. There is an ongoing humanitarian crisis in Haiti. Over 30,000 people, many of them children, have been forced out of the Dominican Republic and sent to the border with Haiti, where they've tried to seek refuge in that poverty-stricken country, still rebuilding after a devastating storm a few years ago. I recently spoke with Tom Tradup, Vice President of News and Talk Programming for the SALEM Radio Network. He was recently in Haiti with the relief group Food for the Poor, and I asked him what led to this latest crisis.
I don't know the answer to that, Congressman. The Constitution, as you mentioned, changed earlier this year. They gave until the 5th of February for people who had lived in the Dominican Republic, some of them for decades, to come up with paperwork showing their lineage and that they had citizenship dating back 2 or 3 or 4 generations, whatever it is. And if they couldn't, then this is what has caused this humanitarian crisis, because in some cases husbands can stay but wives can't. Children can stay because there are birth certificates, but the dad can't because his family didn't keep records. It's a mess, and the end result is, you mentioned 30,000. It's now, in the last couple of days, gone up at least another 5,000 or 6,000. And what's scary about this is that, as you know, Haiti is probably the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And in the major earthquake that they had back in 2010, they lost 200,000 people in that earthquake. Some people involved in this current repatriation and watching the people pour across the border feel that there may be a possibility of 200,000 people coming into Haiti as a result of this move by the Dominican Republic. So essentially they will have exchanged the whole population that died in that earthquake into a country that's still rebuilding from 2010. It's horrible.
And with those conditions in Haiti, you were on the ground there with Food for the Poor. In fact, you're wearing a cap you wore during that mission trip to Haiti. Tom, tell us what you saw and what impacted you the most.
Well, JD, I think one of the things that's very hard for me, as a dad, is to see somebody who's 5 or 6 years old with the desperation in their eyes that these children we saw along the border. We were in one town in Haiti, in Haiti, and there were over 150 people living in a brick schoolhouse that was housing them temporarily. They're going to have to move again once school starts next month. But the pastor in that area was kind enough to let them come in there, at least have some shelter. But they have no food, they have no drinkable water unless relief groups like Food for the Poor bring it into them, and no medical care. There were 17 pregnant women in this particular refugee camp that I visited, and one of them had just had a miscarriage because of the bad medical condition. It's a very bad situation. And one of the things that people can do, it's very simple. You just pick up your phone, you dial, it's a toll-free number. It's not an 800 number, but it's 844-863-HOPE. It's easy to remember. HOPE is what we're trying to bring them, 844-863-HOPE. And Food for the Poor has been on the ground for over 30 years. It's been my privilege to travel with them to Guatemala, to look at situations there, to be in Haiti several times. But the new head of Food for the Poor in Haiti, a bishop who's on the ground there, has traveled to 46 different countries in his lifetime. He said, I have never seen anything like this crisis.
Our thanks to Tom Tradup, and it is worth noting and repeating what he had to say right there. If you would like to help or find out more, you can go to the website foodforthepoor.org or pick up your phone and call 844-863-HOPE. 844-863-HOPE. Now, before we say goodbye, quick note of a social comment. Joe writes in, he's commenting about Donald Trump. He writes, I support Donald Trump completely. I agree with all of his ideas. I believe most of the also-rans also concur with the Donald. However, it's not the politically correct thing to say. The idea of, oh no, you can't say that, ultimately will cost them the election. Our thanks to Joe for his comments. We'll be back tomorrow night. Till then, stay brave, stay free, stay tuned.